Hey guys, thanks so much for tuning into this week's edition of the Original Strength Podcast. Got an amazing show for you today. Probably the show that I've been the most excited for, and that's no slam against anybody except that I was talking to my hero, Miss Carla Hannaford. If it had not been for Carla, I don't know that there would be an Original Strength. There certainly wouldn't probably be a YouTube channel or a podcast. So this was such a I was a fanboy. I geeked out. I spazzed out so much that I never introduced her. We just started talking. Thank goodness I had already started recording. But there's no introduction, so that's why I'm doing this right now with you. But pay attention or grab a notebook, pull up a chair, grab a friend, and a cold one, a cold glass of lemonade or water, and listen to Miss Carla Hannaford. Thanks so much, guys. So thank you so much for doing this.
You are welcome.
So, uh, well, I'll tell you during the interview because I want you to get the full story. But you've changed my life. Like you've just completely. I don't know if you have any idea how much you've made a difference in my life. So I don't really even know what to talk to you about as much as like if. But if there's anything that you want to share or talk about today, we can dive. Go for it all together.
Well, give me a little background about your history.
So I'm a personal trainer. And I before that I was a statistician, and then I was a firefighter. And so while I was being a firefighter, I was also personal training on my days off. But I was getting overuse injuries, and long story short, and this is why I'll say you changed my life. I asked God one day to show me how to train to be bulletproof like Superman.
Uh-huh.
And within a couple of days, I picked up Smart Moves and I just started thumbing through it, and things just started leaping out of the page, and it was like God just connected all the dots. But because of this, you would just say one or two sentences in that book that just made me, it just made all the sense in the world. Like so. Before I started crawling on the floor, I knew that crawling was one of the most miraculous movements man has ever been given,
Right.
and you had all this information of what it does for children with learning disorders and things, or even people with strokes. And I
Uh-huh.
started thinking, well, if it does that with people that have challenges in their brain, what would it do for a normal brain that doesn't have those challenges?
Mm.
And so I started applying it to adults and everybody. And next thing you know, I have a movement education company called Original Strength,
Uh-huh.
and I've been teaching adults how to move like babies for the last 10 years.
Great.
And
Original
that,
strength. It's interesting to me that the brain gym is being used by the Olympic athletes because then they don't have the injuries that they used to have. Everything is really integrated and balanced. And so, yeah.
Well, so
Um,
so that's the thing. When you tap into the original design of the nervous system, it it gives the brain all this wonderful information that it's been craving, but now it has all this great information, so it feels safe to allow the body to move.
yeah.
And so it takes the brakes off. So you're faster, you're stronger, you hurt less, you heal. Like it's everything a person needs is in their body. It's it's
Right.
it's literally inside of them,
Yeah.
and that's your fault.
Yeah, we don't need all these machines and stuff. We just need to move. And
We
we
need
need
to
to
move.
move in an integrated way. That's the big thing that I learned. Um, I guess for me it was an interesting I've always moved. It's just part of my nature. I'm very kinesthetic. I'm right hemisphere dominant. Um, and also I think if I were in school now or even 20 years ago, they'd have put me in special ed because I needed to move. And so luckily I got connected up with the special ed in Hawaii. And they asked me to be their counselor, which was really funny because I'm not a counselor. And I was teaching at the University of Hawaii. And I had my students there doing, movements and different things like that. But and they asked me to do the intermediate school with these hormonal kids. That was the first time too I was introduced to brain gym. And so I started doing that with these kids that were CSAP, Comprehensive Student Alienation Program. They were having real difficulties in a lot of different ways. And it was miraculous to me to see the difference in these kids. And then the next year, the principal from the grade school asked me to be the counselor for special ed too. So I was working for 4 years. I was a special ed counselor for the intermediate and the elementary school and teaching at the university as a single parent. I was younger. It was easier. Anyway, I was learning. Here was a laboratory for me as a scientist to see the differences. It was so wonderful as these kids were doing amazing things after doing the brain gym. I was doing it and finding that life was really different. I mean, easier. I still am. I'm 76. And yesterday I did a 9-mile hike straight up. So 3,000-foot elevation change to Mount Aeneas here was beautiful. You could see the whole valley. I Everything works. I don't have sore muscles. I don't have sore legs, but we need to keep moving, to do this. And right now, in this pandemic, whew, people are in a lot of fear. There's a lot of fear mongering going on. One of the things that we know that's really important is when we're in fear, the cell membrane potential goes way down. And that's where the cells, it's positive on the outside, negative on the inside. We have this polarity. The more polar the membrane is, the stronger the membrane is, so that things like viruses and bacteria can't get in. It stops them from getting in. So if we're joyful, if we're having fun in our life, if we're increasing our dopamine production, which is when we're having fun, then that cell membrane potential is higher. Also, another thing that happens, we produce adrenaline and cortisol when we're under stress and in fear. And it's not all bad. It's actually getting our body ready to survive. But it does shut down the brain by 75 to 85%, the neocortex. So it's harder to be creative or to learn new things. But one of the other things that happens is we start producing more levels of oxytocin, which is a bonding chemical. And it's really interesting for me. When we're in this survival, when we're in this stress, we reach out to others. And I think that's why right now there are all of these groups coming together and saying Black Lives Matter and that sort, attempting to pull together as a unit, as a oneness. And, there are other factions that are coming in because it can, bring in violent factions too. But I think at core, all these people that are demonstrating, peacefully demonstrating, it's we want to come together, we want to make a difference, and we care. And it's that oxytocin, that bonding that occurs. And if we're bonded and we are integrated, what comes out of that is creativity and love and all the things that will actually change the world. We become more coherent. So when people are demonstrating and they're singing and they're walking together, they're doing that cross-lateral integrated movement, they're going to have a great impact on changing the world. If they get into absolute survival and part of the brain shuts down, then it's going, we're going to have problems like we are right now in Portland and that sort of thing. The integrated movements, walking together, talking together. And I know with the pandemic right now, of course, social distancing, but you can still, when I climbed Mount Aeneas yesterday, I was with 4 other amazing women. And we were talking, and when we go and do our hikes, we don't have to worry about carrying bear spray. We're too noisy for that. The bears are not going to come near us. But we're integrated, and
Yes.
healthy. Now
So,
more than ever, we need this.
yes, ma'am. I agree. And you used the perfect word. So the things you saw with the children, you called it miraculous. That's the best way to describe the how the body is designed and what it can do once it starts moving the way it was designed to move. And
Yeah,
and it's miraculous for adults. I've seen mid 75-year-olds to 80-year-olds all of a sudden regain movements they had lost for 50 years
yeah,
just because they tap back into their design. And and because of your influence, I've even gone, so like I told you, I was a personal trainer and I still am, but
mhm,
now with what we teach in original strength, I've gone from believing in exercise as the way to, instead of teaching people how to pick up dumbbells and things, I'd rather teach them how to smile, how to hum, how to skip, like just the joyous movements, because we are made for joy. And that's probably the greatest thing I get to show people is that when they move the way they were designed to move, they feel better.
mhm,
And everybody can grasp that they were made to move. Nobody has a problem with that.
mhm.
But when you show them how their joy is tied to their movement, you can easily make that connection to that. Not only are you made to move, you are made for joy. You're made to be joyful.
Yes.
And because it goes so hand in hand and you can't separate the two at all.
I'm hearing and reading in many, many books right now, like the Book of Joy with Desmond Tutu and the Dalai Lama, and The Politics of Joy, with Marianne Williamson, and actually many books that I'm reading right now too tie back into what I understood in working, especially with the grade school children, is curiosity. Right
Yes.
now, coming back, being childlike. You know, None of us know what's going to happen. And certainly in this pandemic, everybody is, what is going to happen? And all of our normal things that we're used to, our routines and stuff, have all changed. And so instead of becoming fearful, become curious. What's going to happen? And then look at the miracles that happen. And every day I see miraculous things happening with people coming together, but also, you know, the world is beautiful. I'm more and more aware of my environment and how glorious it is. And when we come in contact with that, just as you were saying, then we're we're not going to get the virus, you know. And not only that, in my book, Playing in the Unified Field, all the quantum physics is saying when we become coherent, so does everybody around us. And
Yes.
so, and that coherence is, I do that experiment in my courses, and where one person, I ask them to think of a real stressor, something that's really upsetting to them. And then we muscle check, and their arm goes down because they are in that stressor. And if we check their dominance pattern, only one side of the brain is active and it's way shut down. Okay. And then I have everybody else around think positively. So they're thinking positive. Everybody's thinking positive. And I muscle check them. Their arm is strong when they're thinking positive. But when they hold hands with the person who is in their stressor, holding their stressor, these people's arms go down. And it's like, what? And we go all the way around the circle, so there could be, I did it once with 100 principals in a course. And all of their arms went down when they held hands with this one person that was incoherent, that was in stress. So what do we know about that? Princeton University found that when we think, we leave the present. Okay, we're out of the present. And so when we leave the present, it makes it hard for the heart to come to coherence and then the brain to come to coherence. Okay, so I have everybody go into hookups, which is in my book, where you've got, you're integrating both hands. Huge area of the brain has to do with the two hands, has to do with our hands. Huge area. So, and this is the last structure in the body to fully develop. And so the more we use our hands, it's what makes us human. We have these opposable thumbs, and this doesn't count. Or just using your thumb on your iPad. It doesn't work. You got to use your hands. So when we integrate it by doing this and then bringing our arms around, getting our shoulders down away from our eardrums, and then crossing our ankles and standing. It's better if we're standing, so we're activating the vestibular system, our balance system. And children need it. These children that are having big problems they're having real problems with their vestibular system. They're not balanced. And the same is true with older people. As I work with older people, they lose their balance. So you stand in this way, tongue on the roof of the mouth. So you're connecting the central and the governing meridians, which we know about now. I love this. 60 journals coming into the National Medical Library in Washington, D.C. every month just on studies on traditional Chinese medicine. And what have we discovered? We have meridians and that they're powerful. So we're connecting those. And so I would have the people do this for about 30 seconds. And then unhooking, I would go back around the circle. And when they were holding hands with the person that was stressed, their arm would stay up. All the way around the circle, their arm would stay up. And then I would check the person that had been in stress, and their arm was up. Both hemispheres were on. 30 seconds. As a scientist, I kind of like to see how this works. The HeartMath Institute, which I've worked with a lot, and Roland McCready, and we know now that the heart controls the brain, not the other way around. And so when our heart is coherent, so is our brain. So they have a process that they're using. It's an NLT process called cut through, which works with having people think of a nice place and go to that place. Takes them about 10 minutes to come to coherence. And they're using a biofeedback system on a computer where it's a neat system. It really is a neat system where there's a waterfall, and then there's a stream, and there's flowers, and there's a Bambi. So they're putting a lead on the R lead here for an EKG, so you can get the heart rate variability pattern. And with that lead, they're watching until the person comes to coherence. When they come to coherence, the waterfall runs, stream runs, the flowers bloom, Bambi pronks around, and they're in coherence. And so that takes an average of 10 minutes. So I was going to give a talk at a conference, and a little, worried at the beginning of it. It's a huge conference. And here was this setup with the computer. I thought, I'm going to check it out. So I put on the R lead, went into hookups. 5 seconds. The water flew, the flowers bloomed, Bambi pronked around, and he said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Integrating this system." He says, "Don't tell anybody." Because, when they go to these big conferences, get a lot of money for their research and with the cut through. And if they knew about this, they would lose it. So we have
That's
very
amazing.
tools in our body. Yeah.
So have you how long ago was it when you started working with the children in Hawaii?
That was in 1986. So it's been a few years.
Did you discover or have you discovered looking back that you've made tremendous leaps and bounds as to who you are today versus who you were and the way you thought then?
Oh, yeah. Amazing. To me, if somebody had said you would write 4 books, I'd have said, no way. And yet, what I learned from the brain gym, when I get stuck, I have a problem I'm writing, I start doing my lazy eights, and all of a sudden, the thinking comes very clear. Um, I'm not concerned about the pandemic. I don't get in that. I don't have to go into that space. It's interesting. It's curious to watch what's happening in the world. I find I'm joyful. I'm strong. I'm healthy. Oh, yeah. I remember my mom said, I can't believe how, that you would be a good mother. And I have 2 daughters. She said, because I was always moving and I was always so, not integrated. She was amazed that I could really be a good mother. And that's learning the brain gym helped me so much.
I was just curious because I have found that in my own journey, I am not even close. I don't even recognize the person I was before all this started. And I know so, and some, you know how sometimes you just know things that and you know it's right. You don't know how you know it, or you don't know, you don't know, you know, you can't even prove it, but you just know. But
Mhm.
I know that movement is a gateway to your soul, to your spirit, to everything, to the coherence that you're talking about. Like it's,
Yeah.
so I see things so much differently than I ever saw them before, and but it's wonderful. It's I
Yeah.
wouldn't trade it for anything.
We were built to move. We were really designed. If we didn't move, we wouldn't need a brain. The whole brain is organized around movement. That's the key thing, and we've forgotten that. We were get kids sit still and be quiet and learn. Impossible.
And so what you were talking about with your class, everyone holding hands in a circle. I've also learned so if you have thoughts of fear or anger or depression or lies, like if you know something's not true, it makes you weak. It
Yeah.
reduces your range of motion. It may increase your pain. Uh, but on the other side of that line, if you have thoughts of love, of peace, of joy, or even courage, it makes you stronger
Yeah.
and you move better. And it's
It's so,
just so, and it's at the speed of your nervous system.
mm,
I mean, it's so fast how fast that thought can just change how you move. Everything's connected. You wrote this book called The Unified Field or Playing in the Unified Field.
right.
What
Yeah.
what is can you give a synopsis of that real quick?
Well, just what you were saying, we're all one. We're all connected. We're all vibration. We are so much more potential. We're energy. We have so much more than we believe we do. And every one of us is important. Every one of us is unique. Every one of us is, if we were not here, we would be missed on the planet. We are, you know, and we've got to see each other that way. You know, everyone. Quantum physics shows us that we are one unit. We're all integrated together. And what are we? We're here at this time, in this planet, to draw to us the experiences that allow us to learn, to grow. And so we draw all of these people and these experiences. Everyone that comes to us is a teacher. You know, with the brain gym work, we do balance work. And everyone that comes to me for balance, it's always my issue. I'm like, wow. So the teacher has come to show me how to grow more in love, in joy, in coherence. And if I'm coherent, this is what's really interesting to me. If I'm coherent, then I affect everyone around me. If I'm incoherent, you know, I am affected by people that are in fear and stress and that sort of thing. And but if I'm coherent, I can affect them to come to coherence. And that's what that experiment shows too. I mean,
Have,
we're
have,
strong, powerful.
have you ever heard of the book Power versus Force?
Yes, absolutely. And I met him.
No way.
Yeah. He's an old codger back in Arizona, you know, and we went to his home
Oh my
and
gosh.
because he was a hero for me too, you know. And
Yes.
yeah,
So he's
we are
my hero too.
we are powerful and just powerful in love, you know. And again, I love Marianne Williamson's book, you know, The Politics of Love. It's powerful. It's not soft stuff. We are we are energy. We're vibration and we vibrate with each other. And
So
we have to work together.
I'm going to read that book now. Thank you very much. So now I remembered what I wanted to ask you. So you said, and this is beautiful, if we're thinking, we're out of the present.
Yeah.
So our thoughts either take us to the past or the future, but they take us straight out of the now.
Right.
That was awesome. That's very powerful.
So be here now, you know, just Ram Dass, that was another amazing man that I met and just
Oh
fell
man.
in love with. He was, you know, but be here now. If I'm present, that's when I see the beauty in everything. And this is an interesting time. I think the pandemic, one of the things that the pandemic has done is brought us closer to each other in our families. I'm seeing
Yes.
parents being more aware. Before, and and women, darn it, us women, we are such multitaskers. You know, we're this, and so our children come to us and say, "Mommy," and we're like, "Okay, okay," and we're not present. We don't stop what we're doing, and look at them and listen, and really listen. That be, you know, the time just to be there in that moment with that person, that amazing person. And these children are our greatest teachers in many ways, you know, and to stop what we're doing and be present. I just taught a class on Zoom. It was a 5-week class for Central America. And in many of those places, like Peru, they're really shut down. And there were 7 women in that class. It was a big class of 18, but there were 7 women, all of them medical doctors, and all of them having children that were autistic. And I said to them, you know, what has this pandemic given you? What good has come out of it? And they all said, we are closer to our children. And especially these autistic children, they found that they're actually being quieter and and touching them more gently and being more present with them, and the autistic children are being much more aware and quiet themselves. And so that's really beautiful. It's very interesting, you know.
It is beautiful, and I can tell you for certain that during this time, I am closer with my kids and my wife than. So this has been a gift for me. Like
Uh-huh.
it's for all the things I haven't liked about it, there have been some pearls in it that have just been priceless.
That being in the moment, being present, because that's all we have. Curious in the moment. Who is this person? Who am I? Coming home to ourselves. And I think I have to tell you this funny thing. There is an interesting study that they did with men, and they find that men think 70% less than women. So when I asked my husband, "What are you thinking?" and he says, "Nothing." It's true, you know. And what's great is we women need to learn to do that, to be present more often. Just really be present.
Well, you just helped me out a ton because I always feel guilty when I say nothing, and then I get they don't believe me. Nobody believes me.
Yeah. No, it's good. It's a good thing. Say to your wife, "You've got to be like me. Just be here."
I'll have somebody else tell her that. I'm not going to tell her.
Okay.
Miss Hannaford, thank you so much for taking your time to talk with me today. You have, again, I don't know if you'll ever fully understand how much I respect you. You are my hero, and you have totally changed my world. You've been such a big part of my life, even though I'm now meeting you for the first time. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
We hope you've enjoyed this edition of the Original Strength Podcast.